2012 meeting of the Public Safety Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Antelli.
Here.
Chairman Hanna.
Here.
Mr. Willie Lightfoot. Mr. John Lightfoot. Mr. Michikay. Mr. O'Brien. Dr. Quattro. Mr. Rocco. Mr. Yolovich.
Is there anyone signed up for public forum this evening?
There are two public forum speakers this evening. Would Sandra Migliori please come forward and address the committee?
Good evening. My name is Sandra Migliori, and I am the Adolescent Reentry Coordinator. I am employed by Catholic Family Center. This is a grant-funded position that originated with Bureau of Justice at the federal level. It is passed through the Division of Criminal Justice Services at the state level. It was awarded to Monroe County Office of Probation. I am contracted with CFC to serve the Office of Children and Family Services population of youth that are reentering the community. So if you got all that, there'll be a test. Because the youth that are returning to the community have a host of needs, my program has been able to address some of the things that have been identified as gaps or barriers to them coming back successfully into the community. We also work with the families because you can't separate working with a youth without also working with a parent or a guardian and the whole family unit. So what we do is we meet with the youth who are already placed in facilities through the Office of Children and Family Services to help in the pre-release planning when they return to the community. Most of the youth are returning to the city of Rochester, but there are some youth that we are working with in Greece and Irondequoit and Webster. Some of the things that we've been able to accomplish over the past year is helping those youth and parents to navigate the big systems, Department of Human Services, the Rochester City School District, securing some tutoring for youth, and also helping the family with some basic food, clothing, and shelter needs. Most of the youth returning to the community have one question when they come back: Miss, can you help me get a job? So the goal for 2012 is to work toward a workforce development program. I have left my card with Ms. Rozzi if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Tom Gregory.
In regards to the previous speaker, I would have liked to have heard more. I think that work is probably one of the is one of the best methods for rehabilitation, either that or study in college. And certainly we have a lot of problems in criminal justice here, and I think that the answer first starts with education and employment. I hope them well. I just want to quickly address the fact that we recently appointed a public defender, and the fact that in the newspaper a couple of days later came up the idea that we might be looking at an alternative way of reappointing to this office somewhere in the future. I'd just like to point out that something that President Adair mentioned in his previous presentation about Monroe County being one of the most adaptive and kind of like an inspirational beginning of things. And most people probably don't realize that under the optional county law of 1937, Monroe County actually formed its government. And that particular law, or under that law, we're the only county to have done that. And under that law, we kind of made provisions for how we were going to basically use our citizen advisory committees. And I think it's one thing we should be looking at in the context of when we do something here in a legislative body, to make sure that when we do such, we do things according to statute too. And when we look at our county charter and we look at the laws from which our county was formed, I just want to point out something, and I'll close on that, and that's that we did it right under Wayne-Zyra. We did exactly by black letter law. We followed all the precedents. We're doing a good job. This legislature, You are entrusted with the discretion as to what officers you choose by statute, when you're directed by statute, to appoint. And I would hope that we don't give that power up, because you represent all of us, not just one group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Are there any other speakers this evening?
There are not.
Is there anyone present who is not signed up to speak that would like to address the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Next item is the approval of minutes. You have the November 28th, 2011 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item is new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 12-7, acceptance of a grant from New York State Division of Criminal.
Moved by Legislator Mitch Kay, seconded by Legislator Antelli. Is there any discussion? Legislator Willie Lightfoot.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, and to administration and all of my colleagues there. Looking at this particular referral here, or grant receival here, I do have a couple of questions, and one is, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, what type of equipment and training, see, over time I got that, equipment, training, and travel, I guess is my question, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration. Could have some insight on that, please.
Through the chair, Jennifer Curley from the Sheriff's Office. And yes, there is overtime. The training and seminars are usually training that is conducted by the New York State Division of Criminal Justice 2 times a year that we must attend. There's one in the fall or the winter, and there's one in the spring. And there's also a couple of national organizations that we attend for the training. The equipment is maintenance on the LPR, which we received several years ago, the GPS annual service, and cell phones.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, how many, is this one GPS piece of equipment, or is this several GPS pieces of equipment, I'm assuming, that are in the patrol cars? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration?
Through the chair, it's one GPS, and it's used in undercover capacity.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, in light of the fact that we've seen the Rochester Police Chief recent talks about the downcrease in homicides, increase in burglaries, I'm wondering, are we seeing an increase in auto theft through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration?
Through the chair, we've seen a drastic reduction in motor vehicle theft and insurance fraud. I believe it's around 60% now since the creation of this grant and this funding.
Okay, so leading into my next question to you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, what are the measures of the effectiveness of this program? How are I'm assuming you're measuring it, you're tracking this through amount of cases?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's the number of stolen vehicles, number of investigations, number of recovered vehicles, value of those vehicles, value of the parts recovered, and it's also insurance fraud.
Right. Through you, Mr. Chairman, it's my final question here. Are we finding, is there still, I know at one point there was trends in the type of vehicles that were more sought after, if you will. Are we finding some of those same trends? Are there vehicles that are being more stolen than others? To you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration.
Through the chair, yes, we're always seeing, frequent occurrences of certain vehicles or certain parts that are being stolen from those vehicles, or items that are in those vehicles like GPS.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral number 12-8, acceptance.
Moved by Legislator Antelli, seconded by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion? Legislator Antelli.
Through the chair, this money is passed down from the feds to the state, and I was told that there was a huge reduction in the amount that the state received.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-9, acceptance of a grant.
Moved by Legislator Yolovich, seconded by Legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? Legislator John Lightfoot.
To you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. My question to this is, how often does the task force assemble and assert their efforts? And is it a coordinated or organized effort to the administration?
Through the chair, we have one deputy assigned to the task force, and he works there every single day. So 5 days a week he's there. And if they have a special detail or a special fugitive that they need to catch, then other deputies will be assigned to help out with that detail.
Okay, because it says here, Mr. Chair, to the administration, it says here the collaborative task force with the USMS to investigate. So my assumptions was there was a group of folks that went out to do something, but that's not the case.
What? Oh, yeah, there's a whole, well, there's a warrant guy assigned to the task force, but there's also the Secret Service, not Secret Service, U.S. Marshal deputies that are assigned to the task force, and then to assist him would be other deputies from our sheriff's office that are assigned to the warrant unit that would assist in that detail.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any other discussion? Legislator Willie Lightfoot.
Yeah, that's weird. Sorry. To you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration. Grants for fuel reimbursement, does this decrease in funding come from less miles traveled or budgetary cuts, or is that because of the state funding cuts that you just mentioned?
Through the chair, it's a federal grant, so it's not state funds.
Okay.
And it's just a reduction because that's all the funding they had to allot to us this year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-10, acceptance of a grant from the New York.
Moved by Legislator Quattro, seconded by Legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Legislator Michigay.
There are quite a few decreases in grant funding. Can you explain what happens?
Through the chair, it's the same as the STEP grant. It's all funding from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and the funding was cut across the board on all traffic grants.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-11, amend resolution 140.
Moved by Legislator Rocco, seconded by Legislator Michigay. Is there any discussion? Legislator Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think at this time, my specific question really is to request a copy of the resolution 140.
Excuse me, Mr. Lightfoot, could you speak into the microphone where you have to, I'm sorry. Thank you.
My specific question regarding this legislation was just a request for resolution 140.
We'd be glad to provide that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Legislator Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, to the administration, looking at this one shot from the American Recovery Act here, funding this program, will all of this funding be used on personnel costs? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration.
Through the chair, Bob Burns from the Office of Probation. A portion of this funding, the greatest portion, will be used to appoint a case manager to assist Coordinator Migliori, the same individual who spoke to us a while ago. Some of the funding is used to increase the wraparound services dollars. Those are the dollars that allows Ms. Migliori to provide some extra tutoring, to provide some food, clothing, shelter needs, and the like. But the majority is for the to hire a program case manager.
Following up on that, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, will we see any increase in the number of youth enrolled in this particular program? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration.
Through the chair, this extension, this is funding from the state of New York. They wanted to see the adolescent reentry program continue as long as possible. It was not designed to increase the number of children to be served, but rather to keep the program going as long as it could, and to enhance the services through the appointment of the new personnel.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion this evening? Legislator Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, to the administration, I just wanted to ask, what are we defining as the age bracket for adolescent? And the reason I asked that question is because I was under the assumption that we were servicing youth from the Children's Detention Center, and when the young lady spoke, they were asking for jobs. So I just wanted to know what are the age bracket that we're serving.
Through the chair, this grant is designed to serve juvenile delinquents. New York State defines a juvenile delinquent as being between the ages of 7 and 16. In reality, most of the young men and women that she is serving are 14, 15 years old, or they're 16 or 17, still in an Office of Children and Family Service facility and about to be released. So the formal definition is only up to the age of 16, but some of her clients are a little bit older because they're finishing their terms.
Thank you. So the jobs that she may be asking about would be like summer work, seasonal, temporary work, as opposed, I'm assuming these adolescents will still be trying to seek education, right? Because we know that, you can't really work without education, so.
Correct. Through the chair, many of these youth still are mandated to attend school. That's usually the number one priority, but they are looking for part-time jobs, summer jobs. Some of them are just about completing their education or getting a GED, and they're looking for income. And I know that Ms. Migliori has worked with landscape design agencies, with a variety of other local agencies to try to increase job opportunities.
Thank you very much.
Is there any other discussion? Legislator Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That brings up another question through you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, since we're not seeing an increase, how many youth are we currently serving between that age group right now?
Through the chair, I'd have to check the exact number required by the original grant, but it's fairly small, in perhaps 20 or 25, but that's because the number of youth being placed in state facilities has been reduced over the last several years and continues in a downward trend. The state of New York is asking localities to keep our kids local, to keep them on probation or in a diversion program. So the number of youth entering State Office of Children and Family Services has been reduced every year for at least the last 3 years. But I can get you the exact number that the grant requires.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-12, authorize a contract with
Moved by Legislator Michike, seconded by Legislator Antelli. Is there any discussion? Legislator O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as this is my first day on this committee, I'm glad to be working with you and look forward to working with your committee, Mr. Chairman, throughout 2012. I also will just note that I saw that the county public defender was here, as well as the district attorney. I'm not sure when the last time both the public defender and the district attorney were here with us. Maybe it affords a special opportunity for unique plea negotiations. I'm not sure, but we're delighted to have you here with us. I do have one question through you, Mr. Chairman, with respect to pretrial services. Is this contract for the same level that we entered into with pretrial services last year, through you, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair, Bob Burns, probation. The The specific dollar amount is slightly less, primarily due to overall reductions in Stop DWI program money that all of us received in the last budget cycle, but it's very similar to the 2011 contract.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, then as a follow-up, so if you took away the felony DWI diversion program, are the funds roughly the same for the other programs?
Through the chair, yes, they are. I know that Director McNair is keeping the same number of staff on. There's no staffing reductions as he experienced going into 2011. The programs remain the same. He's doing the best he can, managing a large population with the staff that he has, just as we all are. But no changes in program work whatsoever. A parole program was ended last year because the New York State Department of Correctional Services and Supervision discontinued a program fund for pretrial services, but that just ended some services to parole officers.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-13, authorize a contract with legal aid.
Moved by Legislator Antelli, seconded by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-14, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Governor's
Moved by
Traffic.
Legislator Yolovich, seconded by Legislator Quattro. Is there any discussion? Legislator Lightfoot.
How many child seats does this particular funding allow us to distribute? For you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration.
Through the chair, a seat costs roughly about $50, so it's about $120, depending on if it's a booster seat or whatever, but approximately $120.
Right. And I believe, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, when we got this grant before last year, I was requesting that if it's possible to get us information as to where we're distributing these particular child seats, because again, with the fire department, I know at one point we used to distribute, the Rochester Fire Department used to distribute them, install them, and I know they no longer do that. So it'd be nice if you can furnish the group with your distribution sites. And
Through the chair, it's held once a month at a city fire hall in Monroe.
Okay.
We work with Rochester Fire Department, and they allow us to use their facility once a month there to distribute, and then people come in and they can.
Do you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, is it the same time every month, same week in time, or does it vary?
Yep, through the chair it is. I don't know off the top of my head if it's, the third Thursday or whatever, but it's always the same, and it's in an afternoon, I know that, but I'm not sure exactly what date, but it's always the same every month.
I just asked through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, if we could just get that information, that we could share it with our constituents, and they can partake in getting their children safe with child seats.
Through the chair, yes, I can do that.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Could I also be CC'd on that?
Could you, could you send that information to the entire committee, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'll share it with the committee.
Thank you.
All the members.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item carries. Next
Referral 12-15, authorize federal equitable sharing
Moved by
agreements.
Legislator Quattro, seconded by Legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? I'm sorry. Legislator Yolovich.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, looking at the referral, it doesn't say if this is a new agreement or, if it's a first year or if it's something we've been doing all along and re-signing. Is it new or what?
Through the chair, this is not new. I don't know how many years, though. I know it's been at least 5.
Okay, well, through the chair, then that brings me to another question. What kind of bucks are we talking about here?
Through the chair, I can give you the amounts for the sheriff's office. In 2009, we received $138,000.
That's nice.
2010, we received $288, and in 2011, we've received $153.
Thank you, Ms. Gurley.
Yes, you're welcome.
How about the DA's office?
Through the chair, my name is Adam Bello. I'm the new office administrator for the district attorney's office. In 2008, we received about $85,000. In 2009, it was down to $40,000. In 2010, we brought in $82,000. In 2011, roughly $85,000.
Thank you, Mr. Bello. I guess my question would be, it states in the referral that it's supposed to be used for law enforcement, so I guess I'll direct this to the DA's office. I can understand how the sheriff's department would use it for law enforcement, but does the DA's office actually use it along those lines? That's...
Yeah, it's actually very, through the chair, it's actually a very specific purposes laid out in the agreement on what we can and cannot spend the money on. Primarily, what we've spent the money on is witness protection fees, equipment, expert fees for trials, have experts brought in for the trials. And we also fund a program at the Boys and Girls Club, a crime and drug prevention program.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-16.
Moved by Legislator Mitch Kay, seconded by Legislator Antelli. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, item carries. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business to come before the committee this evening? There being no unfinished business, the January 23rd, 2012 meeting of the Public Safety Committee now stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Public Safety Committee is scheduled for Monday, February 27th, 2012 at 6 p.m.